Hey guys, welcome to another episode of constructive feedback for Battlefield 4. Now in the previous episode I talked about some of the stuff I would love to see on Battlefield 4 that we didn't see on Battlefield 3. Specifically a spectator mode, a battle recorder, a wider variety of server-side options, you know, to compensate for the lack of mod tools. And on this episode I want to do a final recap of the stuff that for me were really game-breaking for Battlefield 3, and I do not want to see them on Battlefield 4 at all, because even though I still think that Battlefield 3 is a bad Battlefield game, it's still a good game overall, and I want Battlefield 4 to succeed. I want Battlefield 4 to be a good game, and I want Battlefield 4, you know, to sell well, but to, you know, also applaud to the casual audience, the veteran audience, and to still be a skill-based game. Okay, so let's start off by some things that, in my opinion, kind of ruined Battlefield 3 for me. Lack compensation, bad netcode, bad animations, suppression, random deviation, low time to kill, spawn protection, and bad spawn points. Those are the things that kind of ruined Battlefield 3 for me, and are really rage-inducing. Same thing with the Supernova Sun and the blur all the freaking time. But I already talked about those things on my previous episodes. But I just wanted to give you my personal opinion on what really destroys Battlefield 3 for me, and the things that if they are fixed for Battlefield 4, I'm 100% positive that Battlefield 4 would be a far superior game to Battlefield 3. The potential is there, the tools are there, everything is there. It's really up to DICE to, you know, open their eyes, see and recognize the mistakes they made and try and make them better. There's a ton of community feedback out there, and above all, guys, above all, if there's one thing I want to change for Battlefield 4, it's not a gameplay aspect, it's not a game feature, it's not a game tool, it's actually a change of attitude from DICE's part. I really want to see DICE to be much more humble and to start recognizing their flaws and the mistakes they made, because there's no fixing mistakes until you actually realize that you're doing them or that you did them, you know. And I would love to see DICE recognize the mistakes they made with Battlefield 3, to come up and say, okay, we recognize that this could have been better, that was a bad call, that was a bad move, we could have improved on that a little bit, we could have listened more to the community, yada yada yada. I want to see a change of heart from DICE. That's the most important thing for Battlefield 4 for me, because I feel that they're getting less and less in touch with the community, and that's definitely hurting their game, a game that lots of us love and want to see it as a successful thing. Because again, I want to see Battlefield 4 to be a successful game. I want DICE to be successful. But in order for them to achieve that, they desperately need to start to be more humble and listen to the community and actually fixing their game and taking the eyes off the money for, you know, for a bit, and start focusing on their clients, their community, and their game. Because for me, I really felt that Battlefield 3 was an enormous cash cow for DICE, and they only cared about patching the game because of the DLCs. They wanted people to feel that they were actually, you know, fixing the game, and that they were deserving of their money, so people would buy the next DLC, etc. And that at the beginning they told us a lot of bullshit regarding Battlefield 3. There were lots of marketing tools around, you know. The game was really not, you know, it did not rise up to the expectations created by DICE themselves, not for speculation or anything like that. I'm talking about stuff that DICE promised, that DICE hinted us about, and that DICE told us on forums, Twitter, you know, interviews, whatever. I'm talking about things that were said by DICE, okay? I'm not talking about bullshit that you randomly read on some you know, forum thread. So again, there are lots of features that for me ruined Battlefield 3, but the worst thing was DICE's attitude all along, and I really want to see that changed. Anyway, let's talk about lag compensation. Lag compensation is really bad, on my opinion, because it makes the game even more random than it actually is. Why should I be punished if the player has a crappy connection? It's not my fault. I mean, it sucks that he cannot afford a better connection, true, but it's not my fault. Okay, I've been there. I've played with 200 ping and 15 frames per second, and I lost over and over again because of that, and because the other players had better conditions than I had. But you know what? I chose to play the game. I knew it was gonna be like that, so I would never ever want other players' game to be, you know, frustrating for them just so I could feel better, because they did nothing wrong. I'm the one that did something wrong, which was to play a game that my computer or my connection can't fully support, you know. And that leads me to the bad netcode. I remember that back at the alpha, the game was client-sided, and Stormmonster, a previous DICE developer that left DICE and gave an interview giving final answers, did a final interview, sorry, giving answers to questions related to Battlefield 3. And one of the things I asked about was why did they change from server-side netcode to client-side netcode? And he was like, well, it wasn't really like that, but you know, yes, it was like that. Well, you know, things had to be done that way, console limitations, yada 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 yada. And I would really like to see a game that it's actually server-sided, because there's gonna be less hacking. It's gonna be harder for hackers to, you know, crack the game open and exploit it on pretty much every possible way. And I would also like to see a server-side hit detection, because players that don't have a higher ping but have a really you know, low ping, like 15 ping, they're also always on a huge advantage. Just do this, guys. Whenever you get instantly killed, go to the scoreboard, press the tab, you know, go to the scoreboard and check that guy's ping. He's either gonna have less than 15 ping or he has more than 90. Okay, that's why a client-sided netcode is not a good idea. Anyway, let's move to the animation system, that it's actually related to the netcode. Again, that guy Stormmonster admitted that most of the times when you saw someone teleporting because of the vaulting animation, or throwing a grenade and shooting at the same time, or reloading and shooting at the same time, that was related to the netcode. That was a flaw within the netcode. So again, you can see how one thing can, you know, ruin other parts of the game. Because of the netcode, you know, the gunplay gets affected, the animation gets affected, yada yada yada. So I would really like to see the animation system fixed as well, because, you know, when you're vaulting over an object, and there are lots of players exploiting that, and I do that myself. For example, I'm running on the middle of nowhere, and someone starts shooting at me. If there are objects that I know that I can vault over them, I'll start, you know, I'll randomly vault over those objects until I can get behind cover. Why? Because while I'm vaulting over those objects, I become immortal. That's a flaw in the game, another one. So I do that until I get completely behind cover, and that guy won't be able to kill me. So that's a huge problem there. Speaking of being immortal, spawn protection basically works the same thing. Reviving vulnerability is pretty much the same as well. On a first-person shooter, you should never ever be immortal. There should be other mechanics, you know, fixing the spawn locations, fixing the gameplay mechanics, so that you should never be immortal on a first-person shooter online game, you know. Another thing that I would really like to see revamped, or at least to see that DICE would give us the option to disable, would be the suppression and the random deviation. I think that suppression has a lot of potential in there, but the current implementation of suppression is really dumb, noob friendly, frustrating, and turns this game into a huge spray and pray clusterfuck experience. Because, you know, the more bullets you miss, the better, because the other guy won't see shit and won't be able to shoot anyone. Even though he's controlling the recoil, the bullets will just randomly deviate everywhere. So I think that's a really bad mechanic, and suppression should remain for Battlefield 4, but on a way that it wouldn't feel like a reward system for retarded noobs, to be honest. That's just how I see it. I have a specific video about suppression that I'm gonna post in the link on the video description. You know, just some suggestions I have to, you know, keep suppression but turn it into an actual working mechanic without destroying infantry gameplay. Another thing I would like to see is the time to kill to get increased. Why should I be able to kill one guy in 1 or 2 seconds without even shooting in the head? I mean, I'm shooting at his feet and killing him within 1 or 2 seconds. That's bad. That's rewarding bad aim. I would like to see, like, I'm okay with 1-shot kills or 2-shot kills as long as you have the skill to hit that tiny part of the body, which is the head, you know. If you're shooting at the legs or at the torso, of course you should be rewarded, but not as much, you know. So the time to kill should definitely be increased if you're not hitting the enemy head. Another thing I would like to see changed are the spawn locations. The spawn points on a flag are really bad, and they are highly predictable, and that really encourages base raping, and I think that it shouldn't be there. If DICE optimizes the game so that there's no base raping, there's no need for spawn protection. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely something that DICE should be, you know, focusing on for Battlefield 4. So that's basically it. I also would like to see the supernova sun not to return to Battlefield 4, because it's really gameplay breaking for me, or at least give us the option, you know, to actually remove that. I mean, if I want to do a cinematic, let me go to the options and tweak the sun so it kind of stays like Battlefield 3. But while I'm playing and I want to see what's happening around me, let me remove the sun. Because let's think about this, guys. If you're playing against the sun, basically the game forces you to lower the crosshair to the ground. So instead of running around with the crosshair more or less at the height of the enemy's shoulders, you're gonna be forced to play with the crosshair pointing towards the ground so that the sun doesn't blind you. Now add on the suppression effect, the blur effect. Now add on all the 3D icons. See what I'm meaning? There's barely any space on your screen for you to actually see what's going on around you, and that makes the game that makes you to like rely heavily on the minimap. Sometimes it feels like I'm playing minimap field 3. If I want to see something, if I want to find out where the enemies are, I gotta look to the minimap 24/7. You know, it's just not. Why would you make such a beautiful game if then you force us to, you know, do our gameplay based on the minimap? It's just something that I would love to see, you know, removed for Battlefield 4. Same thing about the filter. I mean, you could argue like, well, it gives you a cold feeling to the battlefield and whatnot, but seriously, that should be the option for us to disable that. If I want to play with the blue filter, I play with the blue filter. If I want to turn the blue filter into a pink filter for whatever reason, I should go to the server options and do it, you know. That's one thing that I would really love to see for Battlefield 4, the ability to tweak the game to our own liking. And speaking about the eye candy, I truly think that Battlefield 4 is gonna look amazing. It's gonna be gorgeous, but I do hope that DICE does not ruin it with their you know, retarded art direction, because you may think and you may agree, and you're entitled to do so. You are within your own right to like the game as it is, but you know, that should always be the option to tweak it to our liking. So that's basically it. I would like to see a change of heart from DICE into making Battlefield 4 a community or a user-friendly game. And since there's not going to be any mod tools, leave the server options as open as possible so that players themselves can tweak the game and make it awesome for their own experience. So guys, that's basically it. I hope that you enjoyed my feedback. I truly want to see Battlefield 4 to be, I truly want Battlefield 4 to succeed, and I can't really wait until I know some more stuff. I'm not pumped, I'm not hyped, but I'm really curious to see where this is going. The next episode, I'm gonna talk about my wishes for Battlefield 4. You know, the class system, the commander mode, some map suggestions, you know, level designs, naval warfare, and whatnot. So it's gonna be like a wish list rather than a feedback list. But guys, thanks for sticking on with me, and take care. Cheers.